Hi, everybody. Carrie, thanks for inviting me to speak to everybody today. Some of the topics that were raised in the last two presentations actually really bring us into land for some of the things that I'm going to speak to you about. For those of you that don't know me, I am a telco guy by trade, ended up in the recruitment industry, so I understand what it's like to sit on both sides of the table. But over the last 5 or 6 years now, what we've done is take a radically different approach towards how we embrace everything that's happening in the media industry and how we start to create a culture of reciprocity in what we offer back and what we expect to be able to get and create for the media industry. This is me, founder of the OTT Red community. The origination of that community is 5 years ago. We were recruiting heavily globally for the streaming industry predominantly. And I realized that we'd speak to 20 candidates, we'd screen 20 candidates, we'd shortlist 5, one of them would get the job. And it's not always the right person, but the best person that gets the job. It's just the right person for that job, for that hiring manager, for that organization at that time. And to me, it just felt like massive heat dissipation. I thought, what about the other 19 people that were good enough to reach out to? It's just such a waste. So I said to my team, start putting all of those people into a WhatsApp group. Let's make a community out of those people. About 18 months ago, that WhatsApp group got full. I didn't even realize that a WhatsApp group could be full, but it is full. And we had to invest then in making an app. Any of you can download the app. You can go onto the Apple store and download the OTT Red app. I started doing Spotlight podcasts. On my YouTube channel, I've now interviewed over 100 thought leaders and business leaders around the media industry. And that was my university, that was my education. And I've recruited for the last 5 years at C-suite down, from chief executive level down, for media industry all over the planet. The reason that I included the final point there, father of 5 and co-owner, I run the business with my wife. We feed our kids with this business, and I care for this industry. It's not a transaction for me. It's something that I participate in lots of ways, and actually the journey of seeing how Carrie has blossomed, the Media Talent Manifesto, is something that I'm proud to have been involved with almost since the first conversation. So here's where I want to start with you guys when it comes to the recruitment industry, getting recruited, hiring. You are a product. You need to realize that. You're a product in the psychology and the process, not just traditionally and in what I think is quite an antiquated way for what I'll talk about in terms of applying for jobs. I advocate doing something called job farming that I'll go on to later. But the reason that I say that with some emphasis is because stepping back from yourself and working out what the DNA of what your career has been and what the equity associated to your value is will put you in a much, much stronger position. And I can identify people that don't go through this process really easily, really quickly when they come into my organization as an applicant or when we're headhunting people. And it's in the way that they articulate themselves. Today, I'm going to hopefully impart some hints and tips for you on how to position yourself so that you've got a tip of the spear to what you represent rather than going into processes with a broad edge. Where have you come from? And this is when people come to me and say, Chris, I want to start the next chapter of my career, or I'm looking for something, or I've been made redundant. The final point there is the one that I like to ask them the most, because it becomes a mutual North Star for us on the journey of helping them engineer the next stage of their career. What do you want to do? You know, I think a lot of people kind of drift through their career, and then I got this job, and then my mate went there, and then I ended up going, you know, but actually, at certain points, reacquainting yourself with the direction of travel and where you want to head is a super, super healthy thing to do. And if you do that as part of the productization process, you come out the other end knowing what the narrative is on where you've come from and where you are, but most importantly, knowing how to employ that narrative so that it's productive for you. 99% of the time, when I take a role briefing or I speak to an organization that is looking to fill a vacancy, they're looking for an exact skill set. When I look at CVs, I see something very different. Quite often when I look at CVs, there's a big bracket at the top where people will say something like, I'm an expert in, and then there's a list of 20 things, or I've got experience in. That's good, that's fine, but you need to orientate that stack so that there is something that says, this is the one thing that I am an absolute subject matter expert at. Because the cascade of the narrative that comes from that is what will create a really compelling sentiment to the way that you sell yourself as the product. So if you've got a CV that at the moment looks with that broad bit at the top that I think a lot of templates advocated, if you went onto Microsoft template a number of years ago, one thing that I've learned is that actually that's a distraction from when a hiring manager, internal TA, agency or HR director looks at something and says, that's great that this person can do marketing, budget, sales, you know, all of this sort of stuff, but actually we're looking for someone that does this. Make sure that you play to that. Make sure that you position yourself so that it's easy for somebody to say, this is somebody that we want to shortlist. Broadcast exists now on a much smaller horizon of, started off on a much smaller horizon of competition. When I speak to people, as many of you might well be, came into the broadcast industry a long time ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. Actually, I think broadcast created a lot more magnetism as a direction of travel for people that were into tech or creative, because the horizon of alternatives wasn't as wide. Now, if you look at the creator economy, you look at med tech, ed tech, all of these other things, particularly younger generations, feel more intimacy with those things because they're digital natives and they were brought up more close to those things because it's all about tech. I actually think that as an industry, one of the things that we need to do is make ourselves sexy again and really show how cool the industry is. There's some amazing tech in our industry. It ignites me every single day. I love it. It's my sandpit. But I don't think that we do enough, ironically, as organizations that help create content for the consumer, I don't think we do enough of it for ourselves. And I think this is why IBC generally, but sessions like this are really good. We don't create enough content to make our industry as compelling from what's called an EVP, an employee value proposition, as we could. This is really big. Okay, this is the main thing that I wanted to talk to you about, job farming. Applying for jobs, in my opinion, maybe contentiously, is a really antiquated way to secure a job. Nina, your point around the human element, people, likability is removed through applying for jobs. One of the things that I hate the most, and by the way, I've got 100,000 followers on LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn, so I'm not going to say bad things about LinkedIn, but easy apply is an unnutritious way to apply for a job. Things that are too easy are not that easy. I absolutely advocate making sure that you are approaching all of your connections in a way so that you activate your connections. Your CV doesn't matter as much as your LinkedIn profile. That is absolutely your shop front. I can absolutely promise you that internal TA and organizations that are in the agency space are working out what you are by looking at your LinkedIn profile. When people write to me and say, Chris, can you help me with my CV? First thing that I say to them is, have you looked at your LinkedIn profile first? Because that's actually the shop front. Someone's going to look at your LinkedIn profile and identify what you represent in terms of your gravity professionally before they ask for your CV. I promise you, that is the way that it is. So worry about your LinkedIn profile. Cultivate your network, speak to it regularly, post, interact, spark conversations. I'm a sales guy by nature. You may have begun to realize that by now. But I always say conversation is the currency of sales. If you're not having conversations, you're not going to be able to talk about your product. And in the instance that we're talking about, the product is you. So be sparking conversations via LinkedIn, interact. Consciously connect with as many people as you can and only connect with relevant people. I get dozens of connection requests every single day. I only ever connect with people who are in the media industry. And sometimes I'm tempted to connect with others, but the quality of my following is what I'm pursuing. And that's why I generate so many interactions. I've got 32,000 followers myself. We've got over 60,000 on my company page. What I'm looking for is quality in that following, because then whatever we post and whoever we interact with, we're going to bring relevance to, and that constitutes value. And the ecosystem, the digital ecosystem of being able to generate gravity, propagates itself. Speak about your value, your credibility, and yourself from an authentic and disarming posture. When I post, some of you I know in here, so I know that you follow me, I speak from what I call a confidently vulnerable perspective. My kids are my passion, so I speak a lot about my kids. But if you do something, whatever the topic is, regularly enough, consistently enough, and predictably enough, what you start to engender is trust. And if you're trustworthy, people are more likely to buy from you. And if you're selling yourself as a product, engendering the sentiment to that digital relationship is a wise thing to do, because you might not be looking for a job now, but I've worked with some people who have been absolutely fantastic at doing what I'm talking to you about, which is job farming. You know, it's not about just going out to hunt when you need to eat. I've never been taught to hunt. If there were no restaurants or supermarkets, I'd get hungry really quickly. And it's the same philosophy when it comes to your wallet and your personal economy when you need a job. If you wait for the moment when you need a job to start doing this, you're going to be running really hard. You can do it. You can job farm. I've seen people do it and be successful. But if you start job farming now and doing some of these things, you'll be front of mind when somebody is looking for your skill set. This is another big one of mine. I see some big names in our industry talking quite passionately about this without naming them. And they say, if you're not going to talk about business stats, don't put it on LinkedIn. I'm sorry, but LinkedIn is a social media platform. It just is. It's just a social media platform. I'm thankful that the spine of its existence is around commerce, business. That's good. That kind of keeps the narrative. But in this day and age, all of us, more or less, are much more fluent when it comes to existing on social media. And LinkedIn offers us something that, in the purpose of finding jobs, I think Instagram, TikTok, and all of the other outlets probably don't with as much conviction, which is about actually finding jobs, building your network. Exhaust your connection quota. Most of you will have a connection quota that is 100 connections a week. It refreshes every Sunday night. I always make sure that I've exhausted my connection quota every single week. And when I get to the moment where it denies me any more connections, I have a mini fist pump moment because I'm like, I did it again. Because I know that I'm always connecting with people where all of the activity that I undertake on LinkedIn is going to be relevant, it's going to bring value. I'm going to share my podcasts and things that, all of the stuff that we do. We do events in Singapore, Dubai, and London as well called Media Mondays fairly regularly every other month. Now we bring the attention of other people through the canvas that we've created. Job farm 80%, job hunt 20%. I'm not saying don't apply for jobs. You might get the job you're looking for by applying for jobs. But job farming is something that takes 20 minutes every day. You don't need to be spending more on it than that. I've already spoken about a section at the top of your CV. Reorientate that so that if you're going to claim to be a subject matter expert, I would advocate triangulating that so that there's 3 points that you suggest you're an expert at, and there's a tip of the spear, as I say. Use ChatGPT to productize yourself. Chat to ChatGPT. Sounds geeky and really nerdy, but I actually love a conversation with ChatGPT because you can craft and you actually start to weave the fabric of your own understanding by speaking to it in certain ways. And most of you will probably know you can actually adopt it. You can actually ask ChatGPT to adopt a skeptical or positive or optimistic, whatever tone of voice you want it to, whatever chat you want to have, you can ask ChatGPT to do that. Don't send a note when you send a connection request. This is a key tip for you, right? I know what facial expression you're going to have. Most people, when I say this, I've been saying this for years now, I never ever send a note when I send a connection request, ever. And here's why. It's transactional. When you put the note and you just send it, most people get the connection request, do nothing with it. You don't even interact with that person. This is what I would advocate you should do. Send the connection request, go to the top of the LinkedIn page, and there's a little alarm, there's a little bell for alerts, notifications. When you've sent the connection request, go to that bell and change the notifications to all. so that the person you're trying to get the attention of, the connection, if it's a valuable connection, you're actually tracking their activity. It will notify you when that person posts, likes, comments on everything. And every time they do, then you've got the opportunity to propagate the recognition with that person that they are valuable to you. Every time they post, you'll get notified. So you can comment, you can like. And eventually, guess what? I promise you this will happen. They will go, who the hell is this Carrie Wooten person that keeps liking all of my content? And guess what they'll do? They'll go to Carrie's profile, and instead of seeing connect, they'll see accept. And they're much more likely to do that. Why? It goes back to the point that Nina made. Likability and the human factor is a big one. And the gravity dragging their cursor towards accept is going to be great. Why? Because Carrie's been putting really positive, supportive comments on their posts. And they're going to realize that there's a sincerity to the reason Carrie wants a connection request with that person. Probably more so than, I met you at IBC, it would be great to connect. I'm not saying don't do that, it's polite, etiquette is a good thing, it's got its place. But I promise you, if you take that tip, it will help you. The other thing that I use a lot on LinkedIn, whenever anybody joins, I think I'm going to create a tsunami for myself now. If you guys download the app and join the OTT Red community, it might take me a while to get through this, but whenever anybody joins the OTT Red community, the first thing that I do, it notifies me as the owner. First thing that I do is go onto their LinkedIn profile, check they're relevant to our sector, and I send them a personal note thanking them and saying if there's ever anything that I can do to help, whether it's hiring, getting hired, or just comparing notes on the industry or introductions, do not be reticent to ask. I believe in reciprocity. I help you, you help me. That's the way the universe works. I do that for every single person, and wherever I can, I do it with a voice note, and sometimes I do it with a video. You can record a video on your phone and attach the video. By the way, you can do that as well. If you look at the people that have been looking at your profile, every single morning I record a 10-second clip of myself. I'm used to doing it now. It felt weird at first. And I say, thanks for looking at my profile. If there was anything of particular relevance that attracted you, reach out and let's book a 10-minute, I call it a Zoom offie. Let's book a Zoom offie with each other. How appropriate that the coffee machine starts working. And then what I do is every morning I go through who's looked at my profile in the last 24 hours and I upload that video to them. And the number of people that come back to me and go, wow, Chris, how refreshing. Like, this is what farming and harvesting is all about. All of that digital interaction. It's not just about liking and commenting. There's so many things that you can do to help yourself and get on the front foot when it comes to the asset that LinkedIn is and the digital arena. The events thing, there's a few people in this room that have been to some of my events. I love doing the events, again, because they bring human interaction. Like being in this room with you guys is awesome. You know, that you can't achieve this on a webinar. You just can't. And from my perspective, when I go to those events and see the brand that I made, and I can remember the moment that I had the idea of creating OTT Red in the back of a taxi in Dubai, called one of the guys, I was like, dude, what are we doing with all these great candidates? In theory, they represent the top 10% of the industry. Now when I go to events, we've got 70, 80, sometimes 160 people there. I'm like, this is amazing work. These people are making connections that not just benefit me, but benefit themselves. So I would absolutely advocate attending physical events as much as possible. I'll get through these final points really quickly, Karen. The currency of effort. This kind of goes back to what I was saying about easy apply. I think things worth achieving take effort. And I think that whether it's conscious or subconscious, we all appreciate that. We all appreciate it when somebody makes an effort to do something, but it flows off our tongue in a complacent type of way. Just go, yeah. But actually it puts a weighting against whatever that thing is. If someone turns up for a meeting and they're prepared, we put a weighting against their attendance at that meeting, their presence, with more credibility. Making an effort is only now about making the small investments, the kind of things that I'm talking about. Because what I've learned over the last 5 years is lots of little 1%, you're banking a lot over a longer period of time there. So making effort makes a massive difference. Being consistent makes a massive difference. There's oscillations, I get that. Sometimes I'm busier on LinkedIn than other times, but being predictable means people think, that's a Chris thing. Chris is always talking about that on LinkedIn. I should go to Chris. effort, finding your tone of voice and your magnetic north, those sort of things, don't overcomplicate them. You can't break LinkedIn. When I'm doing LinkedIn training courses, I always say to people, when you make a great post, you get hundreds of likes, loads of comments, that feels great. I promise you in a week, everyone will have forgotten about it. But the good thing is, the same is true for a rubbish post. Right? So use both sides of the coin to engender confidence. Experiment with your tone of voice. Find out what you are as a product. And there's no right or wrong. You can't break LinkedIn. In a week, everyone will have forgotten about it, which is why being consistent is important. Things that I've really learned running a community. Now, our community now, we've got the kind of 100,000 followers. We've got 2,500 people in OTT Red in 67 countries. I feel like I've got a really good intimacy with what's happening in our trade around the world, culturally, regionally, geographically, and also in lots of different dimensions as well that really fascinate me in terms of the broad edges of what our industry constitutes. I'm fascinated by the creator economy, not just what it is and the monetization, but the way that a lot of the work done in the post-production and the production side of things has been done in the cloud on phones in 4K. Like, you got to look at the balance sheet of the creator economy. It's radically different. But back to the main point, giving without expecting to receive works. I stand in front of you today, hand on heart, can tell you that my philosophy for OTT Red community has been to give, give, give. All of the events that we did at first, I financed. I was just like, make connections, just give to people. The way the universe works in my experience is that if you do that, you'll start to get back. If you demonstrate that you really care, you will start to get back. And I think if you distill that down, you'll realize that when you come to job farming as well. I think we live in a massively over-automated world. I've already mentioned how much I like talking and interacting with humans. I think that communities are more relevant and accessible than ever. There's lots of different WhatsApp, Discord, LinkedIn, there's lots of different groups. Join them. Find one that matches your personality, your tone of voice, your objectives, and that consistently matches it, not just flash in the pan, consistently. The processes to get a job have changed. Actually, they're still there. I just think they're ineffective. I was speaking to a head of TA at a large broadcast organisation only last week, and she said to me, this will be fascinating for you, Chris, actually, when we used to get 100 people apply, 10 of them were good enough for us to reach out to. They were a match. That's who we used to screen. Now we realise that candidates are blending the job description with their CV and making a CV that they apply with. So we've got 80 or 90% match now, and it's pushing the utilisation of our internal TA effort down the life cycle a bit. She also said that she'd had experience, and I've seen this from an agency perspective, where candidates are making agents a whole department of AI. And it's looking for every single vacancy that gets advertised and then applying for it on behalf of that candidate. When we advertise a role now, we generally don't advertise it for more than 4 hours. And in that 4 hours, we'll get 3,000 applicants. And it's overwhelming. And big businesses are getting even more than that. So again, I would suggest, think about, yeah, sure, apply, but just be aware of those numbers. Actually think about job farming. I'll finish with these 2 points. Things that we're starting now at OTT Red. In fact, the first meeting for a think tank is we've got a massive number of subject matter experts within OTT Red across lots of different dimensions of the industry. I want to give them the stage that I've created because that will be the next wave of value for existing members and to attract future members. So we're starting think tanks across a whole range of things, and there's 2 different AI think tanks actually, so it's interesting that the other presentations were about AI. The career token, one of the things that we've been working on this for months. I said to my team, how do we start to blend all of the different things? Someone's CV, for the last 5 years, we've generated AI-generated psychometric evaluations about people that we headhunt and for the people that we represent. By the way, if any of you want your AI-generated psychometric profile, Carrie, if you get the list of people afterwards, I'll do them for you. I'll send them to you. You will be blown away. You'll be absolutely blown away. But there's that, there's the CV, there's the write-up. We always create videos for our digital shortlist of all of our candidates. What can we do to blend all of those things? So we're actually creating something now called the career token for members, and the career token will be the blend of all of those things using AI that we can represent out to the market to try and expedite and crystallize that value of a candidate. Two things, finally, that hold people back whenever I ask some of our thousands of people here to have this conversation. Fear of not being creative enough when it comes to being present on LinkedIn. Finding your own tone of voice, working out what you are as a product will help elevate your propensity to try. The more you try, the more confidence you're going to get. And belief that you don't have enough time. We've all got the same amount of time. It's just the amount of emphasis that you want to put on the activity to expedite the outcome that you want. And you might not want that outcome now, but at some point you might want it in the future. And I've seen both sides of people existing in that space. That's me.